Good morning. Today we'll be doing June 2022, Paper 1, O-Levels Biology 5090. So now we're gonna start off with question number 1, in which they say that a plant cell has been stained with iodine solution, and you can see that in it there are starch grains. So we know that whenever iodine is placed on a carbohydrate, it turns it changes color to a bluish blackish color, whereas in the absence of carbohydrates, its color is orangish brown. So obviously the starch grain will have a blue black color, whereas the normal cell wall, which does not have any carbohydrate, which the iodine can represent. So the normal cell wall will have orange brown color. So the correct option would be C. Now in question number 2, we know that the xylem vessel is main function is just to transport water and mineral salts up towards the leaf so it can be utilized for the process of photosynthesis. So now the xylem is mainly a dead tissue and it is composed of lignin to just strengthen it. So the two main adaptations are a lack of cytoplasm and thus a lack of living tissue, and its body to just provide more and more support so it wouldn't collapse in the absence of energy. Now, on question number 3, we all know that the basic definition of diffusion is that the movement of air particles from an area where they're in higher concentration to an area where they are in low concentration. And diffusion isn't only applicable in only living organisms; it is applicable in all types of organisms, living, non-living, even in perfumes. Now, in question number 4, we know that in plants, the absorption of mineral salts occurs through the process of active transport. So here there are four graphs which are represented over here, and in each graph, the relationship between the rate of nitrate absorption and the concentration of nitrate in the soil has been shown. So obviously, when initially there was low concentration of nitrate in the soil, so the rate of nitrate absorption was pretty much high because active transport active transport occurs exactly opposite to diffusion against the concentration gradient. However, once the nitrate concentration in the soil increased, the basically the process slowed down. So the correct option would be C. Now, in question number 5, we know that amylase is an enzyme predominantly in humans. It is found in the mouth in the form of salivary amylase, and it converts starch into maltose. So we know that as the enzymatic activity increases per 10-degree rise in temperature up to a maximum of 40 degrees, after which the enzymatic activity decreases. So the correct option out of all of these four graphs it will be C, and you can see that the amount of starch will after 30 minutes is at the lowest at the point at temperature of 40 degrees. Now on question number 6, what is optimum temperature? It is the temperature that produces the highest rate of enzyme activity. Yes, this is the correct option because each enzyme has its own three-dimensional structure, and each enzyme has its own optimum temperature. Some enzymes have an optimum temperature of 40 degrees, whereas others might have a variable optimum temperature of 35 degrees or 32 degrees, just like the pH, for example, that some enzymes which exist in the stomach have an optimum pH of acidic of, for example, 2, whereas others which exist in the mouth such as amylase have a completely neutral pH of 7. Now in question number 7, you can see a variegated leaf which has been shown. Some of its parts have green color, whereas the outer boundaries have white color. So obviously the aluminium foil will block the light rays, and thus the blue and Z cannot possibly carry out photosynthesis. So the iodine solution will be negative over here. And now in X over here, you can see that there is no chlorophyll pigment over here. So the rule also tests negative here. The only portion where there can be a blue black color is Y, because it directly has sunlight on it. Now the nitrate ions, the sole reason for nitrate ions is plant growth, and plant growth is only possible due to the production of proteins. Now in question number 9, they say we have to compare the three tests. Now initially you need to know that the biorate is for protein, iodine is for carbohydrate or starch, and benedict's is to detect basically lipids, and their positive color is red. In the case of benedict's, biorate is purple or violet, and iodine is a blue black color. when it's positive. Now they say that if we can see a beaker and there's a mixture of starch and amylase solution, and they say that the bag is basically permeable to sugar but not permeable to starch or proteins. Obviously, we will see that the sugar content will be increased because the bag is permeable to sugar, but there will be negative starch or protein. So sugar will be positive, thus, and starch and protein will be negative. So iodine test and biuret test will be consequently negative, whereas penetrate test will be red. So the only option out of all of these is red and let me see. Yeah, red and blue and brown. Yeah, the best option is B. Now on question number 10, we need to first know that what is the function of a gallbladder. A gallbladder functions to basically store bile, and the role of bile in the human body is to help emulsify fats and help provide one what is the function of bile. Bile helps to provide larger surface area for the digestion of fats. So, and what are the consequent byproducts of fats? Fats are degraded into glycerol and fatty acids. So they say that the gallbladder is infected. So obviously the main function which is the storage of bile is affected. So the reduced amount of glycerol is absorbed from the alimentary canal. Yeah, because there isn't proper basically broad breakdown of facts. Assimilation. What now the you need to clearly understand the difference between absorption and assimilation. Absorption is the basically absorption of nutrients into the bloodstream, whereas assimilation is the entire process which refers to the breakdown of food to use energy. So building of proteins from amino acids, breakdown of glycerol to glycogen to glucose in the liver, absorption of glycerol into bacteria is of the option. Now on question number 12, you correctly see they say that there are two experiments and one is placed in a room and with light, whereas the other is placed in the dark. So obviously the plant which is placed in light, it will be able to carry out photosynthesis, while the one in the dark will be not able to carry out photosynthesis. So the and consequently the obviously the rate of transpiration will be greater in the plant which is carrying out photosynthesis in comparison to the other one. So the one with the in the bright light will have a decrease in mass because due to transpiration it will be have loss of water, whereas the one in the dark will not have loss of water. So the correct option would be C. Now, what the I discussed question number 13, question number 1 as well, but I'll repeat it. However, we need to know that the main cause of water moving up to the leaves is due to the evaporation from the walls of the basically spongy palisade mesophyll cells. Now, in question number 14, we have always known that arteries carry oxygenated blood, whereas veins carry deoxygenated blood. However, the only exception to this rule is the pulmonary artery and the pulmonary vein. Why? Because the pulmonary artery carries deoxygenated blood towards the lung, and the pulmonary vein carries the oxygenated blood back towards the heart, so it can be pumped throughout the body. So they say which blood vessels carry deoxygenated blood, the pulmonary artery and the vena cava. The vena cava carries all the deoxygenated blood back towards heart. Now, in question number 15, whenever basically what is happening, this is when the ventricle contracts, the blood has to be forced into the aorta, and this is the aorta. So, how will the blood flow into the aorta? It will only flow when this valve opens. So, the bivalve when open, and this valve will close. Why does this valve close? This valve closes so that the blood, when once pushed from over here, it does not flow back towards the atrium. Now, what we need to know that in order to for clot formation, the number one role is of platelets, and apart from platelets, other factors involved are vitamin K and the clotting factors and prothrombin, thrombin, and the clotting enzymes, and as well as collagen. Now, we just in question number 17, we just need to know the chemical equation. So we know that in normal cell, for example, in humans, whenever aerobic respiration occurs, the arrow which is being represented by into the cell, it represents that these are the products which are formed, and the arrows which are going out, these represent these are the excretory products. So CO2 and water gives rise to glucose and oxygen, which are the main requirements for the cell. So this is aerobic respiration. Now, in question number 18, we know that fermentation occurs best in the presence of yeast at a higher temperature so that the enzymatic activity is greater, as well as in the presence of sugar so that the yeast can obtain nutrients. And there's a cotton wool plug so that the air does not escape back. So the best option is D. Now, in question number 19, whenever a person is exercising, the body requires great amount of energy. So in order for aerobic respiration to be able to maximize itself, the amount volume of air in the lungs has to be maximum. So the rate of breathing as well as the depth of breathing both have to be increased. So the only graph in which you can see the greatest amount of frequency of waves is B. Now in question number 20, you need to know that what is the main purpose of dialysis. The main purpose is to remove the excretory products, and urea is the excretory product, not glucose. Glucose is a nutrient, so glucose does not diffuse out and its concentration remains unchanged. However, the concentration of urea decreases in dialysis. Now in question number 21, so the correct option will be C. Now in question number 21, this entire process is a homeostasis, and you can see that it involves several processes which include the vasodilation and the hair erector follicle being erected, and how does the body help to maintain constant temperature is that, for example, whenever the nerve endings on top, they sense a change in body temperature, the blood vessels dilate in case of the outside temperatures increase so that the heat loss can occur by radiation easily. So there is a collection of all of these substances, not only one of them. It occurs synergistically. So the correct option will be B. Now, on question number 22, and this they need to know the cause of the changes in periods 1 and 2. So we can see that in period number 1, there is a great increase in body temperature followed by a sudden sharp decrease in period 2. The only correct option could be that there was a period of vigorous exercise after which there was increased sweating, and why there was there increased sweating, because increased sweating was so that the body could be able to cool off, because the increased metabolic activity inside the body raised the body temperature much. Now, on question number 29, the part of the body which controls the rate of breathing is the medulla oblongata, and it is the part which controls all of the involuntary portions of the body. B. Now, on question number 24, in order for a clear image to form in the form of the retina, the lens should be able to correctly converge all of the light rays in front of the retina. In case the light rays do not meet at the retina, in case they meet at the front, or in case they meet at the back, the person has a blurry image which is formed, and thus is characterized as either myopia, which is known as short-sightedness, or hypermetropia, which is farsightedness. Now, question number 25, the blood concentration of glucose rises because there is a condition causing too much adrenaline, and adrenaline is a hormone which converts glycogen to glucose. The other three options don't match with the statement which has been listed above. Now, humerus is the longest bone in the forearm, so this is number one, followed by the radius and the ulna, respectively. The ulna, by the way, is the medial most bone, and the radius is the lateral bone. Now, alcohol, we all know, can only be tolerated in moderate amounts, and if consumed in large amounts, it causes social withdrawal and is extremely harmful for the liver itself as well. So the only short term, but the short term effect is that no shorter reaction times are is not the reaction times are prolonged, and this greatly increases the cases of driving accidents which occur. Reduce self control of behavior, yes. Now, characteristics of viruses, yes, they they are surrounded by protein coat. Yes, they are, yes, they, because they are extremely small, in thousands of nanometers. They can be only seen with the electron microscope, not with the compound microscope. They can only reproduce inside a host cell and act as they don't act as decomposers. Fungi act as decomposers. Now the you need to know that why we classify viruses as the living thing, because they are the only type of organism which reproduce inside the host cell. And even though they don't reproduce inside the host cell, you need to know that the main differentiating thing which basically differentiates between a living thing and a non-living thing is reproduction and the ability to reproduce quickly. Now, the concentration of antibiotic is most rapid at day 5, as you can see above as well, that the two graphs have the maximum correlation at day 5. Now, in question 30, combustion, whenever you see the word fossil fuels, it will be combustion, because when you burn fossil fuels such as coal, so carbon dioxide and other carbon greenhouse gases are released, followed by you can see that there in Y and Z, what is happening, that produces release CO2. So for example, humans, these but these are plants, for because these are producers, so these are plants, and they intake CO2 and they intake CO2 and Z. So in the process of photosynthesis, we all know that what plants do is that they take in photosynthesis the carbon dioxide, and in respiration they release CO2. Now in question number 31, yeah, or vector. What is, because for example, we need to know that the main pathogen, for example, in many diseases such as dengue, is the Anopheles mosquito. But the Anopheles mosquito isn't the reason why you become sick. It is because the Plasmodium vivax, which is a parasitic disease. However, it is carried by the vector mosquito, and whenever the mosquito bites onto your skin, the infective agent is passed to you as well. And once it reproduces after two complete life cycles, a person develops symptoms. Now, the only treatment to treat tropical deforestation is to basically plant lots and lots of trees. And what is the consequence of deforestation is soil erosion, and soil erosion will eventually lead to desertification and floods, as well as the submersion of all the coastal areas and the coastal cities. Now, in question 33, we need to know that in mitosis, there is asexual reproduction. So the offsprings are exactly identical to the parents, and the amount, and basically they follow the ratio 1:2 in contrast to 1:4 in meiosis. So the amount of DNA is exactly produced twice during the as the time progresses. Now, with the structure which contains sperm is the spermatic duct, and it is represented by D. The urethra is the final passageway, and it contains both urine and sperm. Now, HIV is a sexually transmitted disease, and it is transmitted by either sexual reproduction or by blood transfusions. It does not transfer by coughing or sneezing. And AIDS, there was a myth as well that it could be basically transmitted by simply touching people in the early 1980s. However, by successful programs of awareness programs, such myths have been contraindicated. Now, the liquid that acts as the amniotic fluid, and it helps to cushion and protect the fetus from any kind of physical harm which may occur when for example, the pregnant lady falls. And the second function of the amniotic fluid is to provide the fetus with nutrition by the process of diffusion and take away all its excretory products. Now, continuous variation depends on environmental plus genetic factors, so it may vary. For example, the height, because the height varies on many factors such as the vitamin D intake as well as the general nutrition of a person. However, although genes also play a part, however, nutrition and the environmental factors are a major part. However, discontinuous variation, there is the environment does not have an impact at all. For example, if person is A or B, A blood group or AB blood group, it is solely dependent on the parents, and the environment can have no effect whatsoever. Now we just need to make a cross product for this question, and which people must be heterozygous. So I'm just explaining what heterozygous is. Heterozygous is, for example, that capital A small a or capital B small b, whereas homozygous is capital B or small b, dominant or recessive. So however, a heterozygous person is always dominant. Now, in question number 39, we need to see all of these four populations and which two weeds are best adapted. The weeds which will be best adapted, they will be obviously increasing in population across the year from 2020 to 2021. Their population will be will keep on increasing, and the reason is because the survival of the fittest, they will be able to potentially use the best of the resources available to them, and they use all the sunlight and the nutrition and the water which will be available. So the best option would be plantain and dandelion. As in comparison to groundsel and dock, you can see that their population increase were it began from 361 and it decreased to zero, whereas dock's population increased from 688 to 2. However, plantain and several dandelion, their both population increased from 50 to 1090 and 75 to 987, which is much more than their initial population. Now, we need to know the correct sequence of events. So, we need to know that first bacteria, what happened is that the insulinogene is inserted into the bacterial DNA. Yes, now the bacteria reproduce and they produce human insulin. Fi- Finally, we basically extract the human insulin gene from the bacterial plasmid, and we use special restriction enzymes to cut out the DNA from the bacterial plasmid, and it is then produced on a commercial scale. Because it is not patented, and that is the reason why insulin is cheap. How otherwise it would be much expensive. And initially, this technology was not available, and the only way you could ever reach insulin was by making it out of humans. And thus, this basically technique has been proved to be a life-changing technique for all the diabetic patients. Thank you. I hope you liked the video. Please comment as well. Thank you.